Okay, since Valve made their massive announcement the other day, I've been thinking a lot about the Steam Deck, the Steam controller, the Steam machine, the Steam frame. But at the same time, I've also been thinking about 10 years ago when Valve tried this and failed horribly. And I've been thinking about why they failed horribly and why this is the right time for Valve to try again. So let's look at number one, why they failed. Number two, why it's the right time. And number three, what does success for Valve actually look like in 2025 with new hardware shipping? By the way, if this is your first time here, I'm Bill and this is the NerdNest. I do hardware reviews, video game news, and a weekly podcast. If that is the kind of content that you are looking for, then you might want to subscribe. It's free. I have tons of tech here in the NerdNest, and almost everything that I have here comes with its own charger, but I almost never use the chargers that come with the devices that I get because I tend to use UGREEN chargers instead. A, I think that they're better, and B, they're on sale right now. And UGREEN has been a longtime sponsor of my channel, so that means I have tons of their stuff just laying around in here. But this is the one that I keep in my bag. It's the UGREEN Nexode 100-watt retractable charger. You can charge up to 4 devices with it, so you don't need to carry a bunch of extra chargers in your bag. You can just bring one. It has 3 USB-C ports as well as 1 USB-A port, but my favorite part about it is the prongs fold down so you don't have to worry about it scratching up the things that you have in your bag, and it has a retractable 30-inch cord, so I don't also have to bring a cord with me cluttering up my bag. And I'll usually use that to top off my gaming devices, but I also have a phone, I have a watch, I have my AirPods, and that's where this comes in. This is the UGREEN MagFlow magnetic power bank, which supports ultra-fast 25-watt Qi 2 charging, which can bring an iPhone 17 Pro Max from 0 to 50% in just 38 minutes. Plus, it has multiple USB ports, so you can also charge other stuff while your phone's charging. But like I said before, UGREEN has tons of different ways that you can top off your tech. So if neither of these options really appeal to you, definitely still click on the link in the description down below, because right now they've got their Black Friday sale up to 40% off. And you're going to be able to stock up on a bunch of different chargers and battery banks and all kinds of stuff. And if it's not for you, it makes a really great stocking stuffer come Christmas time. Valve has tried all of this before. 10 years ago, they launched a series of products in order to compete with Windows, because according to Valve CEO Gabe Newell, Windows 8 was a catastrophe for everyone in the PC space. So Valve spent 3 years working on Steam machines. With the Steam machines, they really had 2 goals that they were aiming for. Number one, they didn't want to use Windows. Number two, they wanted to give people a way to play their PC games on a TV. I think at this point, Valve wasn't quite confident enough to take a massive risk on selling a console that they made themselves. So instead, they partnered with a bunch of other companies and let them take that risk. That was Valve's first mistake. You see, because third parties were making these devices and Valve was just supplying the operating system, these other companies have to make a profit on the sale of the hardware. And because these companies don't get to make any money from game sales after the fact, they have to make a lot of profit on the hardware in order to make it worth it for them. Valve's second mistake was that they decided to use Linux instead of Windows. And listen, Linux fans, I am with you. I have no love for Microsoft. My main PC is a Mac. My gaming PC runs Bazite. I'm not a Windows user. I don't like all the spying that they're doing on me these days. And the only time I ever use Windows is when I get hardware in for a review that already has it installed. But Valve's insistence that Steam machines run Linux doomed them to fail, and here's why. Linux's market share in 2015 was 1.7% of the global PC market share. Now, let's say that you're a publisher and you're getting ready to publish your game. Are you going to dedicate a substantial amount of the very limited resources and time that you have in order to port a game to a set of customers that make up only 1.7% of all PC customers? I don't think I would, and very few did. So not only were Steam machines expensive, but they also couldn't play most Steam games unless they were Linux ports. And how many Linux ports were there? Well, in 2015, there was about 1,500, which is a decent amount, but it's not even a quarter of the games that were on Steam at that time. So when PC gamers were looking at Steam machines in 2015, they were asking themselves, should I buy this expensive thing? And if I do, it can't even launch more than 75% of my library? I think I'll pass. But what about the Steam controller? Why did that fail? Well, I think it was for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, it only had one stick. I think tons of people were used to using a trackpad to mouse around on a computer, but would you play a game using a trackpad on a laptop? Probably not. I've tried it and it's never been a good experience. You want to get a mouse instead, right? Or if you can't have a mouse, then at least give me 2 sticks so that users can control things the same way that they do on console. I think people looked at the Steam controller and they said, this trackpad business might not work for me, so I'm not willing to take the risk of buying something that I might end up hating and just throwing in a drawer afterwards. Reason number 2, it didn't have a D-pad. Valve didn't put a real D-pad on the Steam controller. Instead, they put D-pad shaped indents on the left trackpad. But people, they wanted to feel buttons. Hell, I say that all the time. Whenever I talk about why I don't play games on my phone, it's because I want to feel physical buttons under my thumb. I'm not interested in touchscreen gaming. And I can see why somebody would look at trackpads on a Steam controller and think that the trackpad is kind of like touchscreen gaming. And if the controller only gives you the trackpad as your option, well, people were less likely to pick one up. Another reason that they failed was because Valve also got sued by Corsair because they infringed on patents held by Ironburg Inventions, which is owned by Scuf. Apparently, this issue was about the back paddles on the back of the Steam controller, and Valve ended up losing a $4 million lawsuit. Then they won something on appeal, and I think they lost again. It kind of went back and forth. I don't know where it ended up landing, but that's not really important. The fact is, they got sued and said, screw it, let's just sell them all for $5 a piece and be done with it. Now let's compare the Steam machines of 2015 to the Steam machines that Valve is releasing in 2026. This time, Valve is making it themselves, and they make money on game sales, so they don't have to bump up the price in order to make it worth it for them. So that means that when it comes to the price of the new Steam machines that come out next year, it'll be competitive this time around. Valve hasn't said what that price is going to be other than it will be competitive with other PCs. I think it'll end up being a little more than consoles. It'll be priced like lower end PCs because that's what it is, a low end PC. They're also putting SteamOS out there for you to install on your own hardware if you want. More often than not, you can actually get better performance from running the same hardware by running SteamOS over Windows. But before you guys get all pedantic on me in the comments, I know that it isn't fully supported yet. Valve has been making big strides in that direction, and they basically have said we want to get handhelds down first and then deal with other hardware. I feel like handhelds is handled pretty well at this point, and now they're going to start moving to other hardware, but you don't even have to wait for them. I just installed Bazite. It's a great experience, which brings up the other main reason that 2015 Steam machines failed, and that's Linux. SteamOS is Linux. So what's changed? Well, this time Valve has a decade of experience working on this operating system instead of just 3 years. They also partnered with code weavers on Wine and Proton that Valve is now no longer asking devs to do the heavy lifting. If you're new here, Proton is effectively a Windows to Linux dictionary for software. The software, like a video game, asks for a Windows API in order to do something in the game. Proton looks up that API in the dictionary, sees what it does, grabs the Linux version of that API, hands it over to the game, and then the game uses the Linux API without ever really knowing that it's using the Linux API, and the game runs just fine. Hell, oftentimes it runs better than Windows. This means that developers don't have to port their games to Linux, they just run, and Valve has had 4 years to prove it with the Steam Deck. I will admit, I was really skeptical that my games would just run when I got my Steam Deck, but I tested it out, and most games run just fine. And the ones that don't run, well, it's almost always because of some anti-cheat software or some kernel-level DRM, which publishers don't want to support yet another platform, especially one with such a small audience, so they say, no, it won't run, instead of actually just making the port work. The last reason that I think this is the right time for Valve to launch this hardware is that they have a lot of goodwill built up right now. Customers that are using Steam are generally pretty happy with the experience that they get. Publishers tried to leave Steam because they didn't want to give Valve a 30% cut of the sales, but they all came crawling back because people just wouldn't follow the games to a worse experience. Steam is a great experience. That's the reason that people use it. And I mean like everyone. Steam is so successful that it's being called a monopoly by a majority of developers. And I mean, don't get me wrong. To me, the reason that Steam is a monopoly is because no one else is just doing a good job. Steam is not just a store. Steam is also a social network. It's a library. It's a trophy case, and it all works together really well. Earlier this year, there was an article about how Prime Gaming's former VP tried to make a dent in Steam for years, but they just couldn't compete. They figured that Amazon was so much larger than Steam that they could just, forgive the pun, steamroll them. But Steam users are happy with the solution that they already have. And I'm not saying it's a good thing that there isn't more competition, but all the competition for PC gaming kind of sucks. Hell, Larian Studios publishing director Michael Dowse, hopefully I said his name right, he said, it's almost as if Steam isn't providing shit service defined by public shareholder KPIs, which is an argument that I have made so many times. Every other gaming company has public shareholders. When you use Steam, you are Valve's customer. When you use pretty much anything else, you are not the customer. The shareholders are the customer, and the companies always want to please the shareholders above pleasing the people that actually use their stores and services. So Proton fixed the issue with Linux. Valve making Steam machines themselves fixes the problem with price, hopefully. And right now, people are really happy with Steam. So even though Valve's original plan for Steam's ecosystem was a huge failure, I think now is the right time to dust everything off and give it another shot. But that begs the question, if it was a failure before, what does success look like? Well, some gamers, not me, and I'm not saying you, but some gamers are tribalistic, and to them, the only way to succeed is for somebody else to fail. They think of everything as a freaking zero-sum game. It's impossible for that company to do anything good because I chose to buy this company's hardware. It's impossible for this company to do anything bad because I want my hardware to be the most popular so that devs want to bring their games to my hardware that I paid money for. To me, this kind of thinking shows that their brains aren't yet fully formed. I think that they're just myopic and immature. And if that describes you, I'm sorry. But I think success to that set of gamers looks like Valve selling more Steam machines than PS5s, or more Steam Decks than Nintendo Switch 2s. These things are not going to happen, and here's a few reasons why. Valve doesn't market, or at least they haven't ever really done any real marketing for their hardware in the past. Let's think about it. Have you ever seen an ad for a Steam Deck that it wasn't just Valve's own video on YouTube, or used as B-roll in a video like this one? What about the original Steam controller? Have you ever seen an ad for that? Valve lets their products speak for themselves, and that severely limits how many people are going to be interested in them. Valve also doesn't put their hardware in stores. I know they do in certain regions, but where Valve's biggest audience is right here in the States, and you cannot walk into a Best Buy and pick up a Steam Deck. I'm not sure why Valve doesn't put their gear in big box stores, but as long as they don't, there's no way that they will ever reach console levels of hardware sales. But here's the thing, that's okay. They don't need to. To Valve, success looks very different. To Valve, I think success just looks like happy customers. With a device like the Steam Deck, the Steam Machine, and the Steam Frame, well, all of them just play Steam games. For other consoles, when you get a new system, you usually are starting from scratch for each generation, and recent generations have made those lines a little blurrier, but for the most part, that's the way it works. And if you don't sell enough hardware, then third parties are going to abandon your hardware. Let me give you an example. The Wii U launched with tons of games. It was a really good launch for Nintendo, but because Nintendo failed to convince gamers that they should buy it, by the end of the Wii U's life cycle, they only sold about 14.7 million units, and that just was not enough. Third parties said, screw this, I'm out of here. Let's compare that to the Steam Deck. Let's be extremely generous to Valve and say that they've sold maybe 8 million Steam Decks at this point, which I don't think that they have. It probably isn't that many, but we're just gonna be nice here and say that it's 8 million. Compare that to the Wii U, which in 4 years sold about 13 million units, a lot more than 8 million. The Wii U was a horrible failure for Nintendo, but if you asked anyone at Valve if they thought 8 million Steam Decks sold was a failure, I think that they would probably laugh you out of the building. And the big difference is because Steam hardware is never starting from scratch. It just plays PC games, and PC gamers mostly play on Steam. In fact, almost every month, Valve breaks their own record for how many concurrent players they have on Steam. So when Valve sells hardware, as long as they don't sell it at a loss, it is literally a win for them because the hardware gets this halo effect. I can't speak for everyone, but after I got my Steam Deck, I started buying way more games on Steam. I ended up dipping my toe back into building my own PC, which I had not done in absolute years because my Steam library was growing and growing thanks to the Steam Deck. For Valve, success isn't beating the other guy. For Valve, it's giving the players new ways to experience their library because every time they do, it means more game sales. They're not doing it because they're nice, they're doing it because they see that it makes them money, which is what Valve really cares about. And they seem to understand that you can do the right thing now and it will make you more money in the long run than doing the right thing, than doing the wrong thing now that will net you a little bit more money now. And that comes from the benefit of the one thing that they have that nobody else has. They're a privately owned company. They don't answer to shareholders, and they don't have to make sure that they hit goals set by people who are not their customers. From the Nerd Nest, I'm Bill. Thanks for watching, and stay rad.